So our next speaker is Novotný from Masaryk University in Brno, in the Czech Republic. And he'll be giving his talk live. He'll be talking about, well, as you can see on the slide, Markdown, 2 flavors of comment, and LuaMetaTeX. Vít, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Arthur. So my name is Vít Novotný. I'm from the Masaryk University from the Czech Republic. And today I'd like to celebrate with you the 5th birthday of the Markdown package by showing you 5 new features of the 2.10.0 version of the Markdown package, and also by discussing with you 5 ideas for the future of the Markdown package. So what is Markdown? Well, Markdown is a lightweight markup language, which was designed by John Gruber and Schwartz in 2004. It is meant to be easy to read, easy to write, and it was inspired by the formatting of text emails. But Markdown is also a plain text, LaTeX, and context package, which I have produced in 2016, and whose design goals were that anything should be stylable directly from text, and also that it should be easy to drop in and out of Markdown as you please. In the picture, you can see a LaTeX document which contains Markdown text. The Markdown text consists of a heading, 3 headings, in fact, a paragraph with emphasized text, and also a table with a caption. And on the right, you can see what is produced when you typeset this document with PDF text or LuaTeX or any of the modern tech engines. So in my talk, I will first talk about the 5 new features of the latest version of the Markdown package. These include LaTeX themes, LaTeX setup snippets, Semantic HTML comments, lexical text comments, and support for LuaMetaTeX. And then I will talk about some ideas about the future of the Markdown package. And then I will conclude. So first, let's talk about LaTeX themes and LaTeX setup snippets. So LaTeX themes, the design goal here is to specify what Markdown elements do in a document. Also, they should be shareable and applicable as a unit, and they should be combinable. You should be able to combine them to achieve high-level goals without low-level programming. LaTeX themes are applied globally to your entire document, but they can also define so-called setup snippets, which you can apply only to local spans of your Markdown content. I will discuss built-in themes and how you can create your own themes, and then I will also discuss the setup snippets. So the first built-in theme is this simple Whitticle/tilde theme, which redefines the tilde character so that it typesets non-break-in space. Here you can see how the interface looks in LaTeX, how you can load a theme. This is not too useful as a theme, but it shows you that you are really given a fine-grained control over what individual characters do with your themes. A perhaps more useful theme is the Whitticle/dot theme, which redefines listings for the dot language so that they are rendered using GraphWiz tools. So if you have a source, as you see here on the left, where you include a listing in the dot language, this produces a document where you can see a figure produced by the GraphWiz tools, if you enable shell escape, of course. You can also include a short caption inside your the header of your listing. And the final built-in theme is the Whitticle/graphics/HTTP, which causes online images to be downloaded before typesetting. So as you can see here, you just include the URL of your image. You can also optionally include a caption, and then the theme detects that it should download the image, it downloads it, and then it types it as usual, as you can see on the right. So let's suppose that that Grandma Jane Doe wishes to create a simple theme for the Beamer LaTeX package. The Beamer LaTeX package creates presentation slides, and Grandma's team will redefine Markdown's first and second level headings so that they typeset the frame titles and subtitles. And therefore, she names her team jdoe/beamer/headings. Then she manages the team name by substituting slashes with underscores. So that is jdoe_beamer_headings. And then she creates a file named Markdown team, jdoe_beamer_headings.sty, which contains the following simple code that redefines the level 1 and level 2 headings. So first we load the jdoe/beamer/headings theme, but we will be also loading the Witico/dot theme because we want to typeset some directed graphs. First, we are going to typeset the title page, which you can see in the top picture. And then we will typeset a single frame of our presentation, which will contain a frame title, a frame subtitle, and also some listing in the dot language, which will be typeset as a directed graph. So here you can see how you could also combine multiple themes together. And after adding a couple more features, Grandma Doe decides that it is time to upload her theme to C10 so that other authors can benefit from it. That's the main idea behind the LaTeX themes, that it is easier to package behavior of Markdown elements into bigger cohesive building blocks. So let's talk about the setup snippets a little bit. So let's say that Grandma Doe comes up with another idea. She wants to make a theme that makes ordered lists use Roman numerals. So here's what she comes up with. But the issue here is that when she runs this code, which tries to apply her theme only to this small span of Markdown text, she gets the following error: can only be used in preamble. So what's going on here? Well, the issue is that Markdown themes are full-fledged LaTeX packages that make permanent changes to a document. They cannot be unloaded in general. They can only be loaded in the preamble of a document and can be applied in just a local scope. So what we can do is we can separate the cause from the effect. We can load a LaTeX theme in the preamble. As we see here, we have renamed it to just jdoe/lists. The LaTeX theme then defines a setup snippet, which makes the changes that we want. And then we apply the snippet just locally. And here you can see in the bottom left picture, you can see the output that we get. Notice how the setup snippet Roman has been automatically namespaced to jdoe/lists/Roman. And this is so that naming conflicts are less likely to occur between different LaTeX themes. Setup snippets can also be defined outside themes, in which case Roman would stay just Roman. There would be no namespacing applied. So those would be the LaTeX themes and snippets. Let's talk about the other two features, which are two flavors of comments. So in text, comments fulfill several roles. There's not just one way to use comments. One way is to prevent the processing of some code. The other way is to mark up parallel documents in the vein of the littered programming paradigm. Another way is to insert little side notes. And yet another way is to consume new lines and leading spaces when you're trying to word wrap your code. So the Markdown package supports two flavors of comments. We support semantic comments, which are recognized as an element of the Markdown language. They may only appear in Markdown text, more specifically in the content, not in the various markup parts of Markdown. And we also recognize we also recognize nested markup. So you can use markup inside these semantic comments. And these semantic comments enable preventing the processing of code, marking up parallel documents, and they are also useful for inserting little side notes, as I'm going to show you in a short while. We also support lexical tag comments, which, unlike the semantic comments, are completely unaware of the Markdown language. They are stripped away by the preprocessor, and therefore they may appear anywhere. Any nested markup is ignored, and they are useful for the first two rows and also for consuming new lines and leading spaces when you want to word wrap your Markdown text. So let's have a look. Here we can see a semantic HTML command, which is rendered as a margin node. It is rendered as a margin node because we told the Markdown package that that's how we want to render our HTML commands. By default, they are not shown, they are consumed. And you can also see that the HTML command contains nested Markdown markup. So there is emphasized text in the command, which is correctly recognized and typeset in the margin node. So you can already see that this can be quite useful for marking up various comments. And here we can see a lexical tag command, which is used for word wrapping inside a URL. This is something that you wouldn't be able to do with HTML commands, because HTML commands would be able to you could use them here, but definitely not here. This is part of the markup, not a part of the text. And you can also see that you can escape the tag commands by using a backslash, as you would expect. So those would be semantic and lexical comments. And the final feature which I'd like to show you is support for LuaMetaTeX, which is a fast minimalist development version of LuaTeX that is used in the context LMTX format. And since we support context, and context LMTX can appear in TeXLib at any time, I suppose, why not make it play on ice with the Markdown package? So what are the challenges here? So one of the challenges is the Selene Unicode library, which we used for manipulating the Unicode texts. And this library is gone in LuaMetaTeX, but LuaMetaTeX uses Lua 5.4, which contains a built-in UTF-8 library with a similar functionality. So what we did is we added a polyfill that covers both Selene Unicode and the UTF-8 library and uses whichever one is available. The other issue is kpath-c, which we use in certain syntax extensions of Markdown to locate files. The kpath-c is unavailable in LuaMetaTeX, although there is an optional library interface. So if kpath-c is available in your system, which we assume will be in TeXLib, but it may not be in context standalone, for example, then what we do is we look just in the current working directory. But when kpath-c is available, nothing changes. And the final challenge is the Luasocket library, which is unavailable in LuaMetaTeX. We don't use Luasocket at the moment, but this may become an issue going forward, as I'm going to discuss in the next section, discussing the ideas for the future development of the Markdown package. A slight inaccuracy here. LuaMetaTeX actually provides Luasocket, the base C library, but it lacks the high-level libraries such as socket.http. And since that's what we'd like to use in the future, and we don't want to carry our own HTTP client code in the Markdown package, it's a very similar situation to us as if the Luasocket library wasn't included. So that was a slight inaccuracy on my part. Sorry about that. And so on to the next part. So what's next for the Markdown package? Well, there are many intriguing ideas. There are some ideas which are already being developed by the contributors, which you can take a look at in the GitHub repository of the package in the pull request section. There are some ideas that are only now beginning to be discussed, which you can see in the discussion and issues tabs in the GitHub repository. And yet other ideas are still waiting to be discovered by you. And for your inspiration, I will list some existing ideas for improving Markdown and suggest how you could contribute if you were so inclined. So the first are actionable HTML attributes. In Markdown's hybrid mode, we can intersperse Markdown with LaTeX, as you can see in the top picture, where we abuse, or in general, TUG. But here I'm showing LaTeX, as you can see in the top picture, where we abuse this feature to define and reference labels. However, this hurts portability, so we would like to make our Markdown markups self-sufficient so that we don't have to use this and that our Markdown files can be reused across different kinds of software. So this is something that we'd like to phase out in the long run. And the Markdown package also supports HTML attributes on headings, which we have only used for slicing content so that you can show some sections and hide others, but they haven't been used for anything else. So the idea is that perhaps we could make these HTML attributes actionable, right? So you could react to HTML IDs. You could react to HTML class names. For example, you could label and reference sections using the IDs, or you could use the class names to invoke some LaTeX setup snippets. There's a nice synergy. And then you could use LaTeX setup snippets to set up your style in LaTeX, and perhaps use CSS to set up your styling in HTML, right? That could be one way to go about things. And the future development should also look at some syntax extensions so that we can specify HTML attributes on elements other than headings, such as paragraphs, spans of text, inline code, tables, figures, and so on. If this is something you would be interested in, then I recommend that you read this Parsing Complex Data Formats in LuaTeX with LPEC by Henry Menke. The thing is that we have contributors who come to us with regexes. We use regexes in our package, but for recognizing Markdown, regexes are really the wrong tool. So we're using LPEC, which is a much better option when you're writing industry strength parsers. So familiarity with LPEC will be definitely helpful when contributing. And also understanding the code base itself, because LPEC is really prominent in our code. The other idea is Jekyll front matter. Currently, Markdown is only useful for writing body text, not metadata, but by adding support for YAML, we could use Markdown to specify metadata. You could even imagine that even in documents where you're not using Markdown, you might be inclined to use Markdown just to specify the metadata of your documents if the syntax would be as nice as you can see here in the bottom picture. So there's already an implementation by Marey Paschal, which you can see in issue 22 and also the pull request 77. It's still incomplete, so if you like to help making it ready for incorporating into the next version into the Markdown package, you should definitely have a look at the pull request to see what needs to be done to finish it, if this looks useful to you. The other thing is using Luasocket to download online images, because the thing is that the Vitico/graphics/HTTP package, which I've shown you, uses either GNU widget or GNU C URL to download the online images. So this has several disadvantages, of course. First, it requires shell access, So there's a security issue, and these tools are not always available on the user system. So there's always a portability issue. And when I first presented what would later become the Vitico/graphics/HTTP team at Bachotech 2017, Hans Hagen kindly suggested that we should use Luasocket. So I drafted an implementation in issue 82, which uses Luasocket instead of the shell escape. There are several issues with this draft. We are using the socket.http high-level library, which gives us a HTTP client, but there are issues with redirects. If the URL has a permanent or temporary redirect, there is just a loop. It never finishes resolving. So I've described it in more detail in the issue, so you should have a look if this is something that interests you. And the LuaMetaTeX, as I've told you, lacks socket.http. So this is a functionality that we may not be able to reproduce in context LMTX. And there are some other smaller issues, but those are easy to solve. But if you had some ideas about tackling points 1 and 2, that would be definitely helpful. I'm thinking that for the LuaMetaTeX part, we could keep both code paths, so there would be support for using both GNU wget and CURL, or you could use the Luasocket library if there is support in the LuaTeX engine that is available to you. Although I'd rather not, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Another idea is integration with Pandoc, which is a Haskell library for converting between dozens of documents formats, including LaTeX and Markdown. Some would say that it is a direct competitor to our package. And a key point of the Pandoc library is that it uses an intermediate abstract syntax tree format, so-called AST, so that every document format only needs a conversion function from the format to the AST and back, which greatly reduces the number of conversion functions that you need compared to the situation where you're programming a conversion function between every pair of document formats. And the idea is that if the Markdown package could parse the AST, which is quite a simple format, we could typeset any of the document formats which is understood by Pandoc, while still maintaining the full control over the formatting, as you can see here in the example, where we are typesetting a Word document or a LibreOffice document, and we are applying a setup snippet here, so that we can change some aspects of how the document is rendered. For more information, you should see the implementation of the AST parser by Dominic Rehag, which is available in the Dominic Rehag/Lunamark repository. It's not yet finished, and we would welcome your ideas about how you would best integrate this new reader to the interfaces of the Markdown package. And the final idea, which I like to present to you, is the direct mapping of elements. And the idea here is that the Markdown package has always relied heavily on the expansion processor of TUG. So what happens is that you have some Markdown input. This Markdown input is then parsed in Lua to produce abstract abstract TUG commands, as you can see here on the second line. And these TUG commands are then expanded until we get some typographic material. And the nice feature is that the users can easily redefine these abstract TUG commands, as you can see here on the left, so that they control the expansion and therefore what the various Markdown elements can do and how they look. So that's nice, right? But the issue is that we can always rely on TUG's expansion processor. For example, in the Beamer package, the begin frame LaTeX command will consume LaTeX input until it has found a matching end frame command. And if end frame is hidden behind expansion, it will never be found. So one solution here is to allow so-called direct mapping, where the Lua parser directly produces concrete TUG commands without the need for expansion on the part of TUG. So as you can see in this example, This would allow us to prepare presentation slides without ever switching to LaTeX, which is something which we can't do currently. We really need to drop out of Markdown, write begin frame, write end frame, and then get back to Markdown. But it's impossible to write it all in a big slab of Markdown text. So that's something that would be nice, and suggestions on how to best implement this would be appreciated. This is just one idea. Hopefully you find this useful. If yes, then let me know. We can discuss what this could become in the future. And in conclusion, just a short announcement. Lloyd Prentice and I are writing a book called Publish Beautiful Books with Markdown, Fast Track to LaTeX. Lloyd is a novelist and an indie book publisher who also co-wrote and published the technical programming book Build with Nitrogen. And I'm the author of the package with extensive experience in academic writing. In short, Publish Beautiful Books with Markdown is about book design, typography, and technology that allows you to go from well-chosen words to a beautiful book with fewer keystrokes than you ever imagined. And we think you'll enjoy it. So that's all from me. Thank you for your attention, and I'll be happy to take your questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Vít?
Well, I have a question immediately, or a comment. First of all, thanks a lot. Very interesting, nice talk. I like also the idea about Pandoc. I'm a heavy user of Pandoc, and I think that passing the AST and starting from there is probably one of the most useful ideas to implement. I mean, it's not trivial, obvious, but I mean, Pandoc is used in many areas. The other comment I have, I'm not sure you really want to use your time to follow LuaMetaTeX now, because history and experience shows that it will change another 400 times before becoming stable. And so I'm not sure if you want to waste your time there. Oh, sorry, I used waste, I didn't want to use, but anyway, so these two things, I'm strongly for the Pandoc, because that is really something a lot of people, I used it in several projects, that is something that is extremely useful. And while the other thing is about LuaMetaTeX. Thanks a lot again, very great and very interesting talk.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. For those of us who join us on Zoom as participants, you know that I can allow you to talk if you don't want to write your questions in the chat. But if that's all, then thanks again, Vít. And our next talk is in about 15 minutes. I'll be displaying the countdown. I suggest we start on time. So that people who want to join later at the time of the start of the talk can be there.